It's almost a year since I started watching anime on a regular basis. That's a rather long period of time, and within it I managed to view some great things, to force myself through some bad ones, to finally watch some classics, and even return back to my old habit of reading manga daily. But there was still one thing left. One thing that I personally felt I must do if I really wanna tag myself as a part of community. And that was watching some new seasonal anime. I decided to correct this by watching season we witnessed this summer. It was magical, it was exciting, it was something new, at least for me. It was like walking into ice cream shop, wondering about the various new tastes about to try out, wondering about adventures, heroes that will lead me through them, and unexplored distances I'm about to see. I was sure that it's going to be absolutely great, that it's going to be fantastic way to spend my summer break. And what I did was probably the worst possible thing I could do, a mistake I'm gonna regret probably to the end of my days. I started watching every single show that seemed even barely interesting with a clear goal to finish them all. Some of them just turned out to be rather predictable and heavily implied simple rule that main hero must always be on top no matter what happens. Some just combined mistakes of episodic yet repetitive stories and generic uninteresting work that we already saw done better in countless variations. Some started as entertaining, self-aware shows that had potential to become fantastic, but turned out to be just under generic rom-com, haunted by cringeworthy fan service, intentionally tangled and confusing story, and characters that constantly tried to offer interesting ideas about gaming as a concept. Ideas that in the end turned out to be conflicted with each other and made those characters even more unlikable. Some had nothing else to offer besides looking pretty, and in some cases I honestly don't even know what I was expecting. The situation got so bad that I became paranoid and decided to ignore Mate in Abyss, show that is apparently so good that even Super Patch Wolf made about it, and the very same show that managed to get to top 20 on my anime list. It was an experience I'm actually glad for, but no matter how I look at it, it was still a horrible mistake and it almost managed to kill my love for the media entirely. Yet, there was still one show that stood out, that managed to get me thinking about it long after I finished it. I'm talking about Studio DEEN Reflection. Yup, the very same Studio DEEN, which portfolio of shows consists of weird fantasy crossover between that one dude from Darkest Dungeon, Sakura Haruno, and jokes about terrorism.
Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar!
Also featuring the most cute, most family-friendly anime of all time, and also this. Reflection was a show I was interested right after it was announced. It was supposed to be something about superheroes, and I, as your generic Marvel fanboy and also someone that reads unhealthy amounts of comics, was simply unable to ignore that. And one of the creators was nobody else than Stan I'm gonna spit on your grave once Lee. Reflection is a story about the world that has encountered, Reflection, mysterious anomaly that gave people superpowers. This may look like a very obvious copy of Boku no Hero Academia, but allow me to disagree. While the element of something giving people powers is same, no doubts about that, the effect is different in each show. In Boku no Hero Academia, we are in a world where powers appeared entire decades before our heroes were even born. Arkham and society is used to them. In Reflection, we are only 3 years after the event and reflected as the people, what the f*** are those with powers called, are feared and are assumed as a general threat. Little bit of X-Men touch right there. But one thing that really got me to watch the Reflection is the way it looks. Unique or different visual style is something that never fails to get me astonished. When a show manages to look different and memorable, I, in the worst case scenario, admire guts of creators for making this happen and for their attempt to stand out. Sometimes it actually works, sometimes not so much, and Reflection is a very strange case. Style of it can be described in one simple word: minimalistic. It's based on idea of every character having a simple color pattern and on every object being traced by a thick black line. And thanks to this, Reflection really looks like a western comics that has simply come to life. Problem with it does not lie in the animation itself or in the way characters look. It's more like, you know, let me show something. You felt every block, every strike, every attempted tactic, every used technique. And that's because focus was constantly on the fight. There was nothing stopping you from enjoying the scene, no matter how many things happened and how quickly they happened. Let's step up to another level. There is a certain scene in Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill where our main heroine faces off against an organization called Crazy 88. And no matter how many opponents are in that scene, you still knew the entire time what is going on, where is everyone and what they are about to do. And the reason why I'm telling you this is simple. No matter how obvious this sounds, the very first rule of great fight scene is to constantly let audience know what is going on, to be focused on the actual fighting in order to avoid confusion or just straight up like last experience. And Reflection is unfortunately exactly that. Fight scenes in Reflection are, and this is very strange but also honest way to describe them, confusing. Camera quickly jumps between opponents without any clearance about their current position and is overall used in a disorienting way. They ignore simple things like distance between the opponents and fail to deliver sound effects that are supposed to accompany what we see. All of this kills any kind of tension or impact. And this is combined with something that haunts the entirety of the show: inconsistency. Watching Reflection sometimes feels like there were two directors constantly fighting each other about how they want to realize their vision. The first one constantly does mistakes I just said without any attempt of fixing them at all. And the other one manages to create visually appealing scenes, fully using Reflection's minimalistic style. Because when Reflection wants to, it manages to blend background and characters into a memorable scene or highlight big, important moments with ease. It feels like this conflict didn't stop by fight scenes. Sometimes anime looks just average, with very little movement involved and is using its appearance only as an excuse to stand out for a moment before quickly being completely forgotten. Other times it looks imaginative, original and manages to sell some moments we probably would not give a shit about otherwise. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but Reflection's problems do not stop with its art style. I want after you to quickly visualize your favorite superhero. It can be anyone, maybe it's some of the most iconic and well-known faces, maybe it's someone with more brutal and straightforward approach for his role, maybe it's someone less mainstream, or maybe you enjoy the idea of an anti-hero. And now make a perfect plan to defeat his hero, to absolutely destroy him without any chance of him recovering. And chances are you just did so without any problem whatsoever. And the reason for this is extremely simple. Apart from strengths they have, we also know about weaknesses and limits they have. Weaknesses they must keep in mind and work around them. Not only does this make them so much interesting as a character, it's also an easy and effective way to create tension. To create this feeling that no matter how powerful they seem right now, they have some barriers that can and probably will crush them. And when they do, they create some of the best stories World of Comics have to offer. And in contrast, there is nothing more boring and lazy like hero without any clear limits at all. Of course, there are exceptions. Like One Punch Man that plays with the idea of being too strong in fun and self-aware ways, or currently ongoing Inuyashiki-led hero that deals with question, what will you do with unlimited power? Show that solves this problematic situation without any problems is already mentioned Boku Hero Academia. Every hero introduction also focuses on their weaknesses or they are discovered over time. And they have important role in story and show up quite often, like lack of control over power, some kind of emotional barrier, negative effect, or there are moments when I just ask why, even having powers that are not exactly great for fighting. You probably already realized my point. DEEN hasn't even attempted for any of this. Let's use example. Exxon, one of the main characters, has a power to steal ones from other reflected. Well, great, that sounds interesting, right? That has some potential. But there are so many questions about this, and all of them are left unanswered. How many powers he can copy at once? How long he can control them? How much of a control he has over them? Is he able to combine them, or how does the actual stealing work? Another one. Main character Eleanor and her ability to teleport. When I said that DEEN hasn't even attempted, I was actually lying. There is a mention that she can only teleport to locations she sees, and that does not help at all. That is the most common type of teleportation in media, and even characters that can teleport as they want usually prefer to see where they're going. So is she also limited by distance? How many things or people can she teleport with? How many times can she use her abilities without being tired, or is there any side effect? And this is the problem with every single character. This lowers quality of action even more, and instead of intense clashes of using strengths and weaknesses in their favor, they are scenes routed by already mentioned problems featuring some guys fighting for something. These things are simply too much of a problem, and other elements of the show aren't good enough to save it. Story is generic and rather forgettable mishmash about our main heroes going on a journey to catch them all. Wait a minute, they're trying to find some girl in hope of using her to find some group of supervillains that are doing something bad, I guess. All of this in attempt to prove that Reflected aren't as dangerous as everyone thinks. While here, Iron Man from crappy of brand is building career as a professional hero. Dialogue and characters are too average, and action is too lackluster to create any kind of tension from the situation at all. In its 12 episodes of runtime, there are about 2 moments that are slightly entertaining or create some kind of emotional response in viewer. Interesting case is soundtrack. While the opening is just so extremely forgettable and boring that I'm honestly having problem getting it out of my head, and the ending is, well, experimental, rest sounds the way Reflection looks with its own style. Produced by Trevon Horn, and even though this is his first work with anime, it turned out to be surprisingly good. It just sounds so different from any other soundtrack that I've heard so far. Whether it's almost annoyingly catchy Sky Show, threatening and intense Hear Them Come, and even your generic happy music is good here with track My Daily Life. In the end, Reflection tried to stand out, to be new, to be something fresh, and paid horrible price while doing so. It became a victim to its own look and to an absolute inability of DEEN to transfer that look into something that could be considered good. And that's a huge shame. While it seems that superhero genre is slowly rising in popularity, we still don't have anything that could be called proper superhero anime, and Reflection is closest to the definition. But it seems that DEEN is hoping for second season. This can be deduced from show's second name being First Wave, and also from the fact that Reflection ends on a huge cliffhanger. Let me end this video very quickly. If you still want to do Reflection and how unique it is on your own, sure, go for it, it is not the worst thing ever. But let me add something to it. I am someone that prefers dubbed versions over to sub ones.
We have found the witch, may we burn her?
And I understand if you prefer the opposite. But this is the first time when I really recommend to watch the dubbed version. Not only are the voices more soothing, even if this is just a personal preference, the main reason is that it simply makes much more sense. Entirety of Reflection is set in USA, and it's really strange seeing these Japanese talking guys with American names planning their road trip around states. And this is really cool, voices of Japanese characters are actually left untouched. But let's be real, it's not terrible, but it's no Brotherhood.
Hey, she's just a kid.
She's no ordinary kid.
That's right. Don't treat me like I'm just a kid.
Name's Newbie, and I hope you enjoyed this video.
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
なんて言ってるかわからへん。